Hey everyone, I have a trip coming up, so I figured it'd be a better time than ever to do a video on the things that I bring on multi-day trips. Living down in the Southern Islands chain of Japan, I do a lot of trips where I go to separate islands for a few days at a time to fish, and from there's kind of a unique set of gear I have to bring in order to sustain myself and my friends who usually come with me. It's not like you see on YouTube where people in Australia go out to these islands and they're remote and they have no water and there's no people or anything. We usually board a ferry and we take a van with us or a vehicle, and we sustain ourselves out of there. So as you'll see, some of the stuff can be purpose driven for hiking or moving gear or fishing, obviously, but some of it also might not seem conducive of going to an island and being able to just move it all around yourself. We do have a vehicle when we go through, so you'll see some things like we don't bring food because there's a tiny grocery store on the island that we're going to be going to, as well as some restaurants and the ability to get some fresh water and things like that. But to get into it, I'm going to start with some of the more boring gear and work our way into what I bring for fishing and everything of the sorts. Starting with it, I usually bring some sort of hiking bag. This is just an REI bag that I've had for a long time, and inside it I just put the basic things I'm gonna need at night, right? So my sleeping bag, Jetboil, a bunch of different lanterns. Usually we're fishing during the night as well. We'll put out some bait this time, so just being able to have all of that in a bag that I can pick up out of the car and go out to the spot with makes life a lot easier. I also have a light jacket in here and a rain jacket. Most of the time I'm not going to be using a jacket because I am in a tropical island area, so it gets very hot and humid, but every now and then the wind will pick up at night and it gets cold, so it's just a little easier to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. But that goes with that. Another basic, clothes. A lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff when you go out on a multi-day trip. This is just some little duffel bag that I have that I usually fit my clothes in. This time I'm going out for 3 days, so I have 3 days of clothes and a couple extra pairs as well. So some things that I'll bring extras of are like socks, shirts, things that will get damaged or soiled or bloody and everything. I just usually will pack a couple extras of those just in case, or if my socks get wet in the middle of me changing shoes when we're waiting on the reefs out there. No need to go into that bag. Next, footwear. A lot of things people don't think about is what you're gonna wear. I tend to bring quite a few different pairs of shoes. To include, I will usually ride the ferry out there in some sort of Vans or tennis shoes, just some type of casual shoe that's not built around putting miles in. So I've had these Merrells for about 3 years now. They're kind of reaching the end of their lifespan, but these are the ones that I will hike most of the time with our gear in. Usually we'll be able to drive to a certain point, and then we have to hike either down the side of a mountain, up a mountain, around certain things, through the jungle, what have you. Things that wearing your wading shoes is probably not the best for going through there. It's always better to have a hard-soled shoe that you can change out of when you get there. Part of the reason why I bring that backpacking backpack is so I can put my shoes in there and I don't ever have to worry about it. So I can carry my wading shoes and my hiking shoes, and I don't ever have to worry about dealing with any of those sorts of things. I always bring a pair of Crocs or flip-flops or something just for comfortable wearing around wherever I'll be sleeping or whenever we're not fishing, which isn't very much or very often, but if we're in a spot for a long time, our feet have gotten wet, it's always nice to have your feet just able to air out. But for me, I have pretty sensitive soles on the bottom of my feet, so I like to have them covered at least when I'm walking around on rocks or anything like that. So I always put a pair of Crocs in there. And then this one is new to me. This will be the first time I've tried them out, but these are actually diving shoes with a thick felt sole on the bottom. I usually will wear some pretty light Bass Pro Shop wading shoes that I bought years ago. But they've started to get a little old, and I've tripped a few times out on some shallow reefs while wading, and because they were almost like a sandal, I've had coral scrape and cut the side of my foot open just because they were not the best thing to be wearing out there. So these new shoes, they're by US Divers. They're just my size. They're neoprene on the inside, and they have a pretty beefy sole to them, so they're not gonna flex and do anything crazy on the rocks, which is always my biggest concern. A lot of cheaper wading shoes, they don't have a thick sole on them, so when you're walking around rocks, you can't really feel, or you feel too much of the bottom. That could be a bad thing, especially when you're on uneven ground a lot and you're trying to step in between different heads of coral so you don't damage anything on the reef. You can slip, you can, twist your ankle real easy. So having something that's a little more sturdy, like these shoes right here with a thicker sole on them, helps to make it so you're not going to injure yourself out there on the island. And if I haven't mentioned it yet, all these islands that we go to, the one we're going to probably has triple digits for the amount of people that live on that island. So there is no hospital, there's no medical type of things there to be able to help us if we were to hurt ourselves. So everything that we can take that will stop that from happening, we're going to take it with us just to make sure that we can not have to deal with any issues later on, especially of a medical scenario, because it's an hour ferry ride. Every person on that island speaks Japanese, and they don't really speak a lot of English. So if an emergency was to happen, we have a vehicle, we could get there, but we would have to find someone that could at least have enough of a conversation with us to help get us help. Not the easiest thing to do. There's not a lot of really good cell service where we're going as well. So obviously things of a preventative nature work best. Next, I just have a basic sleeping mat and a thick woven blanket. These kind of come one and the same, or I use one or the other. Sometimes when we're on rocks, it's probably not best to use an inflatable sleeping mat because you can puncture it, or it doesn't really meld well with the uneven surfaces. So we'll just bring me and my friend Yuki will bring one of these blankets each, and we'll just lay it down over the rocks. It just makes it a little easier to sit on, a little more comfortable in the middle of the night if we want to lay down. We don't normally get a ton of sleep when we're doing these types of trips, but if we can rest our heads down while we're waiting for the next bite, we're gonna do it. After that, we have pretty much the base of everything. that I want to take with me. This is my crate. I use it on offshore charters. I use it on inshore charters. Anytime I'm going on a boat, I'm going to be working out of a car. It's going to go in the back of my truck. Pretty much does everything for me. I've put these tubes on the side, so if I needed to bring it somewhere, I can throw rods in it. Usually that's how I use it on the boat, but this is going to stay in the car 99% of the time. And essentially all it has in there is all of my extra tackle. So different pliers, scissors, an extra fillet knife, just to make sure that if something else breaks, I can go back and grab it from the car. As well as just some things that I don't normally put in bags. Hats are really important. Having something to cover your head when you're going to be outside the entire day, especially when you're a white dude like me who tends to burn, that's something you need. So I throw it in here. It helps remind me. I usually put them right on top because I'm very forgetful, so I'll forget it if I don't see it. I put it right where I can see it, and it goes on my head the second I'm out of the car. Along with it, I have my hook sharpening kit, and then I have a lot of different light and medium tackle gear that I'll take. So I use this little bag when I'm wade fishing. Right now it's just got some bluefin trevally lures in it, just some medium weight, anywhere from 15 to 30 gram swim baits, and then I usually keep an assortment of different leaders inside here as well. This bag changes a lot because this is what I will go grab if we're doing some sort of fishing other than our main goals on the trip. So this trip, our main goals are going to be GT, bluefin trevally, and hopefully we can get an akajin or some sort of grouper that we could eat or bring home. Usually we're going on these trips, we try and harvest at least 1 or 2 fish to make sure we can bring them home. And not in this video is the big cooler we're gonna bring. We've gone on these trips for 4 days at a time, caught fish on the first day. They were still great by the end of the 4th day when we were getting back onto the main island of Okinawa. Haven't had any issues as long as we just keep changing our ice out. So there is a little store on the island where I can buy ice. We go in there every day, make sure that the ice is topped off, and then we keep the fish real nice and chilled, and bleed them and do everything that we need to make sure that the meat stays fresh. Also in here, I've just got everything extra that I can think of that I'll need. So there's a lot of leader in here. Some people might think it's overkill for leader, but with the amount of rocks that we have in these volcanic islands, you're changing your leader way more than you would normally think. So I have a lot of 60-pound, 80, and 100 in here. Because the second we hook up on a fish, you pretty much guarantee you got to change your leader. There's rocks everywhere, there's reef everywhere, there's coral, you name it. Sometimes you're only having to, snip off a foot of leader. Sometimes you got to change the entire leader. So it's better for us to go out with tons of stuff that we don't need to use than needing more leader and we don't have it. And I know that's kind of like almost the saying of this video is better for us to have extra than to need it and not have it. To go along with that, I always carry an extra spool for my 10,000 Saltiga. So this is a 400 meter spool of PE4. That's exactly what my 10,000 holds, and that's what I'm going to keep an extra of in case I get spooled. A lot of people chuckle when I tell them I fish a 10,000 size reel for GT in the first place. So having that being said, I've had times where I've gotten a lot of line taken out and then they snap me right on the reef edge. So I could lose 100 meters of line that's a pretty important thing when you're dealing with, you know, fish that could spool you in a matter of minutes. So having a whole extra 400 meters of that line really helps to have in the bag, just in case I lose too much line out there on the island and I need to re-spool my big reel. My smaller reels, I don't really worry about that as much, because if I lose, you know, I might lose 10 or 20 meters of line, and it's not really going to make that much of a difference when I end up having to retie on a leader and fish, because the fish for my lighter setups are not going to be taking out tons of line. I can make it through for a couple days losing, you know, 10, 20 meters of line here and there. I also keep an assortment of rod holders. So out here in Japan, one of the funny things that you'll see in a lot of different places is if an area is fished, they will have these studs in them from past fishermen that are threaded, and it makes it so you can use these little rod holders that they have, that they sell at almost all the tackle shops, and they're pretty cheap. But they come with a little rod, and they just thread right into themselves. So instead of having a sand spike like you would in the States if you're surf fishing, you take these little, almost like a freshwater boat style rod holder, and this rod that has a threaded adapter on it, and you'll just screw it right into these rocks, and there's your rod holder for when you're fishing for bait, or when you want to leave something. So when we're leaving rods out overnight with bait on them, that's usually the way we go. Makes life easier. We don't have to worry about anything. The last overnight trip we took, which you guys saw in my video, we did not have any of these rod holders, and we lost a very decent sized fish due to the fact that our rods were just laying up against the side of the rock, and braid line is not very abrasion resistant. So the second it hit that rock, we broke the line, lost everything, and we just had to hope we caught another fish that size, which, if you've seen that video, we didn't. I also have an extra big box of heavy tackle lures in here. These are just big swim baits, minnows, poppers of the sorts, just in case I don't have enough or I lose too many lures. It is very common to lose lures out here, again, because it's a very rocky bottom. And then I have a terminal tackle box that has everything, weights, rod bells that we attach on the ends for when we're fishing bait in the middle of the night, so we can know what's going off, and just extra gloves, pretty much rope, string for stringers, anything you can think of that would be extra, it's going to be in this crate, and it usually just stays in the car. And then when we go out, we'll pull things from here, and between myself and Yuki, who's the other guy who goes out fishing with me on these islands, we just split them between our bags, and by the time we're out there, we just figure out what we're going to need next time, and we adjust from there. We fish together so often that we pretty much know everything we're going to need, so we'll bring it out with us, and it's just set in stone. But that's all for the crate. Then we get into my heavy tackle bag. This is what I'm going to be taking down to the reef edge with me, or any type of drop off that I'll be fishing for GT, or anything bigger like bluefin, anything where the water gets deep. This bag is coming along with me. I've had this bag now for 3 years. It's seen some better days. Obviously some things are going to break after years of use, but I'm extremely happy with this bag. It's a Calcutta tackle bag. I don't know what the model number is. is. It's just this slim little bag. It comes with a tackle box. Not gonna lie, it's kind of a cheap tackle box, but it works for terminal tackle, so you can throw it in your bag. But I'd highly recommend, if you buy this bag, switch it out with either like a Plano box or something a little thicker or beefier if you're gonna do it if you're gonna use it for the things like I use it for, which is hiking, rock climbing with your gear, things that are going to damage bags, that are going to damage gear. We're extremely hard on our stuff. Things are going to get wet and stay wet for days on end. The salt's going to get into them, like fish. Blood and guts have gotten all over this thing. I've had to wash it down in the middle of boat rides. I've had, hooks get stuck in the side of them, had to snip them out, but it keeps trucking. It's a great bag. It's a great little bag, and my favorite thing is that it's got these pliers on the plier holders on the side, so I don't ever have to worry about things. If I set it down, I can grab them real quick right out of the side of the bag, and it's not uncomfortable. So a lot of tackle bags tend to be really big. They're bulky, they don't fit very well, and they're pretty much impossible to fish in. This bag, I have fished while wearing it for hours on end, and because it's such a slim bag, as you can see, it's a small bag. It's only made to fit one, maybe two tackle boxes at the optimal capacity to be able to fish from this thing. I know a lot of people, probably in the States, they get this bag and then they put it down and fish with it. That's not what I'm using it for. It's probably was never intended to be used for this. I've talked to some of my friends that I've just recently found out work at Calcutta, and they think it's hilarious that we're using gear that's essentially made for inshore, offshore boat fishing, to go climb rocks and go popping and stick baiting for GT across the world. But in this bag, we're gonna have, so my front pocket, I tend to put all of my leaders. I usually carry, so 140 is what I'm mostly going to be using, 140 pound test for GT. And then for my light tackle, or more of like my medium heavy setup that I bring out with me as well, I'm usually using anywhere from 60 to 80 pound tests. So this is all Veravas tournament line mono. I know some people like to go crazy and say that you should be fishing fluoro. I love mono. I get a better stretch with it, I feel. And I've never had any issues when it comes to abrasion resistance, when it comes to the differences between mono and fluoro. I've never seen it. I'm sure one day I'll see it when I lose a big fish and it annoys the crap out of me. But so far, this real high quality monofilament line is not going to do you any wrong. Same thing with this 60 pound test that I have in here. It's just a small spool of it, and then I also keep a headlamp and a flashlight and just a knife right here on the side. All on the outside, so it's easy to get to. Sometimes the water gets up to our waist, so I can't really take the bag off and set it down. I have to be wearing it, and just having leader, which is probably my most accessed thing that I need, besides a lure box, is the easiest to have right on the outside. So when I sling it back around, I can just pull this open, and I have all of my leader. Also, this front part's kind of like a hard material, so it holds its form very well. So I can, when I pull it open, it doesn't like crumple and move around on me. Same thing with this top pouch right here. So this is actually made for sunglasses, but I like to use it to keep all of my clips, swivels, and just an extra lure, like a real quick jig if I need it. Every now and then we'll see a tuna out there, and it makes it real easy if I can just hop in here right on top, pull the jig out, and then throw it out again, and switch it around. Makes life easier. And then on top of that, I'll have an extra set of hooks, swivels, and 150 pound snaps. So because sometimes I'll be switching lures so fast, I don't tend to tie direct especially with 140. It makes life a lot easier to just use real heavy duty snaps. They're not snap swivels like we use in the States, but they're pretty close to it. They'll also keep a rod gimbal on the outside. It just helps when it comes down to using your rod. So every now and then, after hours of fishing, you start getting sore, you start getting tired. It makes life a lot easier if you just have it. Some people like to call others wussies for using it, but oh well. I fish a lot and I fish hard, and when I get tired, I get tired. Also, I always keep just a little squid jig right on the outside. Every now and then we'll be sitting there on the edge and we'll see some squid come up, and if you haven't ever had fresh calamari, it's one of the joys of life for me, and I would love to have that on there so that if I see him real quick, I'll just toss it out and see if I can catch one. I also have this little side pocket right here. Again, as I was talking earlier, there is no medical, there's nothing out there that can help, sustain your life if you were to get really hurt. So one of the things that I always carry very close to the outside and easily accessible is some sort of tourniquet system. We're dealing with a lot of sharp things, okay? So hooks, knives, the rocks are very sharp. The teeth on fish can also be very sharp. And all it takes is one real slight slip, and you now have bleeding that could end your life very fast. So it's very important for me from a medical aspect when I'm not in an area where I can get to medical help or support quickly. I need to be able to sustain myself to be able to get to that, because there's a very high probability that no matter what happens, if an emergency was to happen, I would have to be the one walking myself back to the car, or I might get an assist a little bit, but it's going to be mostly under my own control, and I'm going to have to, be able to help myself or help the other person who's with me. So just having something simple like a little tourniquet. This is the RAT system tourniquet. It's a real simple tourniquet. It's made of surgical tubing and a clamp. If you don't know how to use any medical equipment that you bring out with you, I highly recommend you at least watch a YouTube video or something along the lines on how to help yourself. If you don't know how to use this, don't buy it. Only buy stuff that you know how to use. Only buy medical equipment that you are comfortable with, that you also could use for someone else. This is not going to be used if a hook goes through my finger. This is for if I was to slip and break my arm and I was bleeding out or something of those lines. This isn't just something small for if I cut my finger open. It's for helping prevent myself from dying. It's not something anyone ever wants to think about when you go out fishing, but it's definitely something you need to think about. Medical is the thing that will get you killed, and obviously no one thinks they're going to die, but when you're in an area where there's no medical safety and you can fall off a rock really quickly and break something or hurt something or cut something, it's always better to have it. And again, if you have something that can make a hole or open you should probably have something that can help close you up as well. So if I have a big knife in my bag to cut open fish or to cut bait, I'm also going to have something to patch that up. So then we come into the big compartment of my heavy tackle bag. And again, going along with the line, I didn't plan on this being a whole medical talk, but first aid kit. This is just a bag that I had from first aid kit I bought a long while ago, and then I've continued to keep it stocked with other things. So inside, it's just basic things like Another tourniquet, there's Tylenol in here, there's allergy medication, there is Band-Aids, Neosporin, little small things. So this is for if I get a hook through my finger, if I cut my hand open on a rock, or if I fall and cut my leg, something small. Anything can be taken care of with this in here, and it makes life a whole lot easier, especially when you're prone to forgetting to drink water and things like that. Tylenol is nice to just help with a headache at the end of the day. So it's always something nice for me to have personally, so that's something I always carry. If you've ever fished freshwater and you've seen little stringers for bass and crappie and the likes, that's essentially what this is. This is my big boy stringer. So it's 3/8 inch cord rope, and I've got a loop on one end, and it's just a normal end on the other side. And essentially all I'm using this for is when I have to bring fish from, you know, the bottom of a cliff to the top of the cliff. It's 10 times easier to have a rope that I can tie around them than trying to carry it up by lipping it or carrying it by the gill plate. I know a lot of people don't agree with it all the time, but every now and then we will keep a GT. They're actually a fantastic table fare if you keep some of the smaller ones, carrying a 15 to 20 pound fish up the side of a rock face is not easy, especially when you're carrying all this gear. So having a stringer, it just makes life easier for you. On top of that, I'll have some light tackle jigs, so anywhere from 20 to 40, that's what this box is. Just smaller jigs in case we see any type of grouper swimming around, that we can toss these out or try and work the bottom with. This is another jig wrap as well, with 60 gram jigs in. From there, I've got this medium tackle box. It's pretty much just got some smaller stick baits, poppers, and lipped minnow baits. So from here, you're going to see a lot of 30 grams, 20 grams, 25 grams. That's kind of the sweet spot for this tackle box. It's mainly geared towards bluefin trevally for this box right here, and then under it I have my big tackle box. This is my heavy tackle, and it's going to be all of my stick baits, all of my big poppers, anything that I need to make some noise in the water, or that I'm going to toss. A lot of bigger, 6/0 hooks, 7, 8/0, anywhere from 60 grams up to 100 plus. We're going to be throwing it out of this box. So this is my box. Yuki also will have his own box when we go out and do these trips. And from here, these are pretty much just all the things that we're going to take out with us right on that reef edge. And like I had mentioned before, we also have, we'll also each have a bigger box that we keep in the car. That will also be geared towards if we lose too many lures or anything like that. I also have pockets on this front side. So from here, I just always like to keep soft plastics. I grew up inshore fishing in North Carolina, so if there's anything that they do a lot of there, it's fishing with soft plastics or mirror lures. They don't sell mirror lure out here, but they do sell a lot of soft plastics. So I've got a lot of 3/4 and 1 ounce jig heads, or here they're 20 and 30 grams jig heads, and then I'll just keep a couple packs of paddle tails too, so that I can put them where they need to go. If I see a fish, or if I get a little bored with stick baiting, I can always throw a bigger paddle tail. Fish love soft plastics, and I will stand by that till the end of my days. And that's one of the things that I love using the most for it. Up top, in the top pouch, closest to the top, I have my set of casting gloves. When you're fishing PE line and you're having to leader fish that weigh half as much as you, it's really important to have a good set of gloves. like I've said, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but any type of inconvenience out there is annoying, all right? So if you slice your finger open because you missed a cast, or you did something weird with your PE line, or you get a wind knot, or you're leadering your fish and then it decides to run and rip that 140-pound weed whacker thickness line through your hands, it's always better to have something in between your skin and the line than to not have it. So I always wear gloves when I'm fishing heavier tackle, and then I usually keep an extra right hand. I'm right-handed. I fish a spinning reel, so I'm casting right-handed. I always keep an extra right-handed glove in here too, just in case every now and then I have the finger rip open or something like that, and it just makes it nice so I don't have to go back to the car and grab more stuff. If I was to, ruin my gloves. I've done a couple trips where I forgot gloves entirely, and it was not fun. Your fingers, your skin can only take so much, and when you're casting, somewhat thin PE line, braided line all day long, the pads on your fingers will get so sore to where the next day fishing it just sucks. And I'm out there to fish. I'm out there to make the most of my time. So if I can't fish all of that time, then it gets really annoying because now my fingers hurt. We're constantly drenched in salt water, so your fingers are drying out, and then you can actually just start splitting the pads of your fingers open. It's just not fun. So I always have gloves with me, and sometimes many pairs of gloves with me. But that's my heavy tackle bag. All right. From there, all my camera gear goes in a Pelican case. It makes life easier. It's waterproof. I don't have to deal with anything, and everything small can fit in here. And that's pretty much it. My main camera is obviously filming me, so we don't have to, I'm not gonna have that to show you, but I will usually carry 2 zoom lenses with me in a little sling bag, and then I have a waterproof bag that I will carry down to the water's edge with me too, just in case I want to use my nicer camera. Sometimes the water's too rough and I'm not going to take it out, even though it is weather sealed. It's better to not test it with salt water, and because of that, I'm testing out this on this trip. It's the Tellison neck brace. I see a lot of people using it. I don't know if it's gonna stay as steady as the chest mount, but we'll see. Hopefully it works out well, and then from there I've got a case with all my SD cards. There's another bag in here that's got tons of batteries in it, power banks, my GoPro, and then my wireless mic kit that I just got today also fits in here very nicely, along with some small tripods, not including the big tripod that I have the camera on right now. That would not fit in here. And now we'll move into the rods. So going from smallest to biggest, I apologize for all my friends in the States. I don't think any of these rods, except for maybe 1 or 2 of them, are available there. But one day I'll be back in the States and I'll actually have things that you guys can buy that won't cost a ridiculous amount to import. But so my main light tackle rod that I bring out on these events or trips is my Shimano Encounter. This is a 9-foot medium light rod with a Stratic 4000 SW. I'm not gonna lie, I got the Stradic because it was on sale, and it's actually been a pretty phenomenal reel. I usually fish Daiwa reels, but I've really enjoyed this one. It's got about 300 meters of PE 1.5, so it can hold up to some pretty big fish. Surprisingly well. This rod can cast anywhere from 4 to 28 grams, which is anywhere from about it's less than an eighth of a, or it's about an eighth of an ounce to 1 ounce. So this has a very crazy capacity for throwing lures, a lot wider of a variety than you would think in the States, but it's a phenomenal rod. It's really lightweight, and you don't feel like it's a 9-foot rod, so it's a fantastic rod for reef fishing because I'm able to cast out far, but I can also work extremely light lures. So sometimes I'm fishing, I'm fishing lures that weigh an eighth of an ounce, a quarter of an ounce, and being able to toss those lures 50 yards is quite a feat when it comes to having such a light rod that can handle such big fish. The last trip we took out on this, I was throwing a 20-gram pencil, and it actually got hit by what we think was either a GT or a bluefin. We couldn't really tell. It was shallow, but it was so far away, and it just blew right up on top, and it was this reel was screaming drag for a good 30-40 seconds before we bent the fish that it was on, bent the hook straight. It looked like a GT, fought like a GT, a small one at that. It wasn't big, it was on a flat, but the fact that it had even held up to it and we were able to gain a little bit of line on it just speaks volumes to this rod. So this one is the one that I'm going to use a lot. It's a 2-piece rod, and yeah, nothing else can be said. I love this rod. It's probably one of my most used rods for anything that's not heavier tackle. From there, I have a few different medium tackle rods, so we'll go into what I'm going to use for shore jigging. This is my 10-foot slash, I want to say it's the Dream Thief. It's also classified as a medium light, but it's more of a medium to medium heavy. I have a Daiwa Alexa 5000 on here. It's got about 300 meters of 2.5 PE on it. It's the Daiwa Saltiga braid, so 8-strand braid, really smooth, really nice. This rod has a fantastic action. It's made to be a shore jigging rod, so it works really well with shore jigs, obviously, but it does a fantastic job in fishing pretty much any other type of lure. So anything from 20 grams to 60, which is about 3/4 of an ounce to 2 ounces. It does a fantastic job. It's 10 foot, so it can cast very well, but it doesn't cast the way that you would think like a 10-foot shore or surf rod would work. It has a very stiff midsection and a very fast tip on it, so it doesn't get that very big parabolic bend like you do off a surf rod in the States. It gets it's almost like fishing a 7 or an 8-foot rod for lures, but it's 10 foot long, which means I can cast it a little bit better. I just have a bigger versatility with it that I can use. So this is what I use a lot for my heavier light tackle, if that makes sense. So anything on a reef that I'm going to be targeting big fish, so like Taman, bluefin trevally, anything bigger, this is the setup that I'm going to use, and it does a fantastic job at that as well. Then going into this rod, it doesn't currently have a reel on it. This is a Search Game by Seamania. Again, it's another one, just one of those rod manufacturers out here in Japan that I just saw it was a good deal. It's a 7-foot rod, so it's a little short for what I use a lot when it comes to fishing on the shore. I plan on primarily using this for soft plastics when we're out on the edge of the reef. There's, as you'll see in the next video, there's a big cut that comes in almost like a little bay. And my plan is to use this shorter rod inside that cut where it drops down to about 50-60 feet to where I can work a soft plastic very well. It's got some real beefy guides on it, so it's got double-footed guides the entire length of the rod, even though it's only a 20-60. So this is the same weight class as my 10-foot. The reel that I'm going to put on this, I'll be interchanging the Lexa 5000 in between this rod and the other rod back and forth. This one's more of just a test. I bought this as a boat rod for light tackle mahi fishing, but we'll see how it goes. No idea yet, but obviously the best way to find out is to use it, so it's going to put in its time out on this trip as well. Then from here, we're going to go more into our heavier tackle. So I jokingly say heavy tackle because this is a 6,000 size reel. This is my Caldia 6000 on my Zenith Castism 7/8 medium rod. So my first ever GT I caught on this rod. It's a PE 2-4, so it's a real light feeling rod, but it has an amazing backbone to it. It says it can throw 30 to 80 grams. I've easily thrown 100-gram lures with this and had no problems. Every stick bait that I own, I've been able to throw with this rod. It has a really nice action to it. It's fast, but it's also moderate, so it's kind of like a moderate fast action, but it just feels amazing to use, and I use it a lot. It's probably the most used rod that I have besides the 10-foot heavier action that I'm going to bring up in a second. This rod, I can't speak anymore on it. It's just fantastic. It used to have my Daiwa Saltiga on it. I recently got this Caldia 6000, and I took it on a charter a couple months ago. Hit tons of big mahi with it. This reel it punches way above its weight class. It's got about 350 meters of PE2 on it, so actually lighter than what I have on my Lexa, but it just handles it phenomenally, and it casts very well with that line on there. And being PE line, even PE2 still is in the 30-35 pound class range, so you're getting plenty of oomph from that line as well on this rod. But that's going to be also just used for medium heavy. If I see some smaller fish, or if I decide that my popping rod is just a little too heavy. And then to move on to my most used rod that I own since being in Japan, this is my Zenith 10-foot Schlem. It's a 30 to 120 gram PE 2-4 10-foot lure rod. I mean, this rod is fantastic. It's kind of like a surf rod, but also just like a shore jigging rod, where it doesn't get a crazy bend all the way through to the butt of the rod. It does have a very beefy foregrip section, but it does get a full bend in it when it's put under load, so I really love it. I'll be using this rod for bait fishing this time. That's why it's got my has my Daiwa Saltist 5000 on it. It's the old Saltist, so it just works real well when it comes to bait fishing. I don't normally use this reel for a ton of stuff. It's usually my backup reel to my 10,000. If I were to ever need a backup reel when it comes to GT fishing or anything like that, I would use this reel. It's the old Daiwa sizing, so like I know it says 5,000, but it is almost the exact same size as the 10,000 size reel that I have. It holds just as much line. Obviously, it doesn't have the same amount of drag that a Saltiga has. It's not pushing 20, or this thing might be pushing 25 pounds of drag at full, definitely not 55, but for those of you that have ever felt what 25 to 30 pounds of drag feels like, you're not going over that most of the time anyways, because the amount of force that you have to put in, you're going to break your rod if you put in 50 pounds of drag, unless you're fishing really heavy tackle rods. But this one's going to take a break this time. I normally use this for land-based mahi fishing, but it's just going to be fishing bait for us at night on this trip. And then last but not least, I have my main rod that I plan on using 90% of the time that we're out there, and this is my popping rod. I currently have it set up with a Yo-Zuri popper on it. I don't know, it might change, might not, depends on the water conditions when we get there. Due to the way the tides are going to be, we're actually going to be able to go straight to where we want to go right off the boat. So both of us are having our heavy tackle rods set up so that the second we get there we can just hop right out of the van and get to where we're going. But this is my Saltiga 10,000 with my Shimano Grappler Type C 120 gram PE 4 to 6 rod. So I mean, I know that these rods are pretty popular in the States. They're pretty popular here too. Here they're a little bit cheaper, so a lot of people love buying them because you can get them for a better deal. Same thing with the Saltiga, but this was actually bought as an 8,000, and then I've upped the spool. So on top of carrying an extra spool of PE4 for this spool if I get spooled, I also have the 8,000 spool still that's spooled up with PE3 that I use for jigging, but I can use it in a pinch. So if I ever need it and if I somehow manage to hook into that many big fish during the day, then I have the extra spools for it. But I've used this a couple times. I've taken it on a charter, fished it for mahi. It's just a big beefy rod. I've hooked into some big fish with it, and at this point it almost feels like, you know, when it comes to fishing for mahi, it's almost like you don't even have a fish on. You feel like you're reeling in something tiny when it comes to a fish that's, you know, 10 to 15 pounds for a mahi. But it's going to work fantastic out here. This is going to be my first time using it for actually GT popping, but we'll figure it out. I have no doubts that this rod's going to perform. I know a lot of people fish this rod. It's big for tuna, it's big for GT, it's big for pretty much everything. But with that, that's everything that I bring. I haven't put it in here, but I also bring 2 coolers. I usually bring a small cooler for bait, and I bring a big cooler for fish. And other than that, that's pretty much it. I don't bring a ton extra that I don't need, because like I said, they do have a small little place on the island that I'm able to get all my food and get all my water from, so we just buy it daily from the little grocery store. We've learned fast the first couple times that when we were to go out on these islands, we tried to camp a little bit too much, and you know, bringing food, bringing things that have to be cleaned every day, bringing big tents and you know, a canopy and a folding table and chairs and all that stuff, it just doesn't end up working. There's too much stuff to do, and by the time you get back to camp at the end of the night, you're already so tired that you don't want to have to deal with it. So all we do now is we just bring out very simple stuff. We'll bring out a Jetboil with us just in case we need to make some instant ramen because all the restaurants have closed or something like that by the end of the day. But other than that, we really don't bring a ton. We bring what we need, and that's it. But so from there, that's all I've got for this one. And just remember, if you can get to it, fish it.